Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military Summary channel. In this video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous 12 hours. We have a lot of very interesting updates, so let's start. Yesterday in the evening, Zelensky blamed the Russian Federation and the President of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin, that the Russians rejected the peace proposal that was prepared by Ukraine and the European countries. Zelensky commented on Putin's speech at the Defense Ministry's board today. He stated that today we heard from Moscow another signal that they are preparing next year as a year of war. It's important that our partners see this, and it's important that they not only see it but also react to it, particularly our partners in the United States of America, who often say that Russia supposedly wants to end the war. So we see that the peaceful settlement of the conflict process failed. We see that both sides, the Russians and the Ukrainians, and of course the European Union and NATO countries, are continuing preparation before entering the military and the war year of 2026. Another important update is coming from the United States of America, and it is very important to understand this. According to information we have, representatives from Russia and the United States may hold talks on Ukraine in Miami this weekend, according to Politico. It was previously reported that talks between Ukrainian and US delegations, including military representatives, were scheduled to take place in Miami on the same days. So there are two options, there are two ways how the things may develop in the future. The first thing is that on the territory of the United States of America, we might see the first meeting between Ukrainian and Russian delegations on the matter of the peaceful settlement of the conflict. This is the first option, why both delegations of Russia and Ukraine are planning to travel to the United States of America this weekend. And the second option is that there is nothing to talk about from the United States of America about the peaceful settlement and about position of Ukraine regarding this peaceful settlement of the conflict. So that is why the United States of America decided not even to travel to the Russian Federation, because they have nothing to show Russians, they have nothing to tell Russians about the situation. But at the same time, the Russians by themselves want to understand and to see the position of Ukraine and the European Union. So that is why the Russians are going to travel to Washington or to Miami, to the United States of America, just as one purpose, to understand the position of Ukraine and what exactly the Europeans and Ukrainians were talking about during the, let's say, the talks process that took place several days ago on the territory of Germany in Berlin. Anyway, let's wait and see what is going to be next. The weekend obviously is going to be very interesting. Now let's return back to Ukraine and let's discuss the situation along the line of combat contact during the previous 24 hours. During the previous night, we received lots of important updates. And first, let's talk about the southwestern part of Ukraine, about the Odessa region. It wasn't until the 5th day of the blackout that a state of emergency was declared in the Odessa region. The destruction of critical infrastructure and the regional administration's poor response led up to prolonged disruption of normal living conditions for over 50,000 residents of the region, lasting more than 3 days. So the situation is critical, and I would like to remind you that the Russians were bombing and attacking this territory massively during the previous 5 days or during the previous 10 days, and as a result of those attacks, the local blackouts occurred in this area. Now let's discuss the situation in the Zaporizhzhia direction. During the previous 12 hours, we received lots of important updates, and the most important ones are coming from the western Zaporizhzhia direction, where the Russians, as you can see according to the configuration of the map, managed to improve their position significantly. Several sources this morning stated that Russians, as a result of offensive operation, managed to answer the southern part of the settlement by the name of Lukyanovskaya. So very heavy clashes are taking place right now for the village. The Russians are trying to break through Ukrainian defense and to force Ukrainians to fall back from this area. So based on the video that was published by pro-Ukrainian sources, we have adjusted the map in this area. So here we can see lots of attacks carried out by Ukrainians on positions of the armed forces of the Russian Federation in this area. Lots of attacks took place exactly in this region, and these buildings, all these constructions were geolocated. And based on this video and based on the reports that were published by different sources, we have adjusted the map map. So this is the situation by the end of the 16th of December. I would like to remind you that by the end of the 17th of December, we adjusted the map to the east of Stepnogorsk based on the video that was published by pro-Ukrainian sources. And by the beginning of the 18th of December, we clarified the situation in this region by adding additional territories under complete control of the armed forces of the Russian Federation. So now we can make the conclusion that Russians control or establish control over these huge territories, and they managed to take under complete control this dense network of the fortifications, which means that the Russians have a very strong position. Most likely Russians will continue offensive, and most likely in coming days we will get additional updates from the territory to the east of the settlement of Lukyanovskaya. We are talking about this dense network of the fortifications. As for the eastern Zaporizhzhia direction, during the previous 12 hours, we haven't received anything that can clarify or to adjust the situation on the ground. There are very heavy clashes right now. The Russians are trying to improve their positions on the Ukrainian side of the river of Gaichul. Today, several sources reported that the clashes have begun for the village of Zaporizhzhia, that Russians are trying to improve their positions between the settlements of Pishchan and Gerasimovka. So the Russians are trying to take as many as possible territories on the Ukrainian side of the river, with the purpose then to continue offensive operation in the direction of the village of Ternovata. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation in the Pokrovsk direction. During the previous 24 hours, we received lots of very important updates from this area. And first, let's talk about the settlement of Novopodgorodnaya, which is located to the west of Udachna along the railways in the direction of the settlement of Mizhova. This video was published today by pro-Ukrainian sources, and here we can see a very heavy explosion in the central part of the settlement. And some sources are saying that Ukrainians destroyed this building because they were retreating from this area under the pressure of the armed forces of the Russian Federation. A few more sources reported that Ukrainians destroyed this building because the Russians managed to capture this territory and the building was already mined, so that is why they destroyed it. So as you can see, there are two options, but both of them are in the Russian favor. Either the Russians managed to capture this territory already, or the Russians are about to do this, so that is why the Ukrainians decided to destroy buildings that can reinforce Russian positions in the future. So this is so most likely in coming days we will adjust the map, and it seems that the village of Podgorodnaya has already fallen. Most likely the map will be adjusted in this area significantly. At the same time, several pro-Ukrainian sources and pro-Russian sources stated that Syrsky may make another attempt to recapture Pokrovsk by the new year, so in coming days. According to them, mechanized units of the Ukrainian armed forces are amassing in Andronovka, Slavenka and Vodolazhskaya, approximately 40 kilometers to the west for this purpose. So several pro-Russian and pro-Ukrainian sources are saying that after obviously almost the end of the battle, or after the complete stabilization of the situation around the city of Kupiansk, Syrsky began redeploying of their troops in the Pokrovsk direction. Currently he is concentrating a critical mass somewhere in this area, and when the process is being finished, the Ukrainians may try to counterattack in the area of the villages of Udachna and in the direction of the city of Pokrovsk, with the purpose to answer the city before the end of 2025 with immediate purposes. The Ukrainian sources are saying that for these purposes, the Ukrainians are planning to take some forces from the Sumy direction. We're talking about the 71st Infantry Brigade, 47th and 78th Brigades as well. So once again, when we were talking about the city of Kupiansk, we reported that Syrsky took forces from the Sumy direction with the purpose to counterattack in the area of the city of Kupiansk, and that led to the situation that Russians launched their offensive operation in the Sumy region. Now we received a report that Syrsky decided to take few more brigades from the Sumy region and to redeploy them in the direction of the city of Pokrovsk, which means that the situation in the area of the Sumy will continue deteriorating, which means that Russians will intensify their offensive operation in this region with the purpose to create or to take under complete control additional buffer zone between the city of Sumy and the border with the Russian Federation. Furthermore, we have report that Russians improved their positions on the territory of the city of Mirnograd itself. So these are the changes on the ground between the dates. This is the 17th of December. This is the 18th of December. The Russians improved their positions around the settlement of Svetla, and Russians improved their positions in the southern part of the northern part of the city of Mirnograd. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation in the Slavyansk direction. Currently there are very heavy clashes for the settlements of Ozerna and Dibrova. The Russians continue advancing in this area, and during the previous 12 hours additional changes on the ground were recorded. So these are the changes between the dates. The Russians are trying to take under control this dense network of the fortifications and the settlement of Ozerna itself. During the previous 12 hours this video was published from this direction, and here we can see how Russians were attacking positions of the armed forces of Ukraine in this area with FPV drones. So lots of attacks, lots of destructions were recorded within the video, so which means that the Russians are currently attacking this territory with the purpose to force Ukrainians to fall back. The most important thing that if the village of Ozerna falls, then the Russians will be able to get the Seversky Donets river and then probably to continue offensive operation further in the direction of the settlement of Krivoluka. But for these purposes the Russians would be required to cross the river of Seversky Donets, which is not a very simple task during these circumstances, but the Russians might try to do everything. As for the Kupiansk direction, the Ukrainians continue their counter-offensive operation, and as you can see today the map has been adjusted once again. So this is the end of the 17th and this is the beginning of the 18th. The Ukrainians managed to improve their positions significantly. Furthermore, we have a video that was made at the beginning of December, so as of now we don't know for sure whether we need to make adjustments on the map or not. In this video we can see how Ukrainians were fighting with Russians right exactly at this point. Once again, the video was made at the beginning of December. So that is why we will keep the territory as is until we get probably a better or newer videos from this direction. Furthermore, we have adjusted the map in the area of the river Voskol, so based on the report published by pro-Ukrainian sources. And another important story is connected with the city of Kupiansk. If you remember, several days ago the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation published this video where we can see how a Russian soldier was moving through a street, and later pro-Russian sources stated that this video was made right exactly at this point of the city of Kupiansk. So right here we can see the map and we can see coordinates of where exactly the video was made according to pro-Russian sources. But 2 days later, yesterday in the evening, some Western sources managed to geolocate the exact position of the Russian soldier, and according to information we have, the video with the Russian soldier was made on the territory of the settlement by the name of Tavlazhanka. So this is the street and this is the Russian soldier, and this is exactly the place where the video was made. So as you can see, for some reason the Russians made the video on the territory of the settlement of Tavlazhanka, and later they published this video and told us that the video was made at the area of the city of Kupiansk. And with this video the Russians were trying to confirm that the city of Kupiansk is under complete and strong control of the armed forces of the Russian Federation. So now we can make a conclusion based on everything we discussed during the previous days that the situation for the Russians on the territory of the city of Kupiansk is very difficult, and indeed there are very high chances that as a result of this battle for the city of Kupiansk, the Russians would be forced to fall back from the western bank of the river Oskol towards the eastern bank, and this will allow Syrsky to release additional forces that could be redeployed in the direction of the city of Pokrovsk, where Ukrainians may try another attempt to counterattack with the purpose to answer the city of Pokrovsk and to report about this by the end of 2025. So the situation is very difficult, so let's wait and see what is going to be next. And that's it for the short video. Military Summary channel reminds we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for your watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.